My twin sister Isabella and my ex-husband Marcus really did conspire to steal my daughter Emma. And yes, I found Isabella's phone with months of secret recordings that exposed everything. But what you don't know yet is what I heard in those recordings that left me chilled. They were manipulating my 8-year-old daughter into testifying against me. The revenge I planned with those recordings was spectacular and will leave you breathless. But before I tell you what the judge said when she heard everything, subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss any of the incredible stories we tell here. Have you subscribed yet? Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let me tell you how this conspiracy began. My name is Victoria Chen, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had my life meticulously stitched together. At 42, my physical therapy practice in downtown Seattle thrived, a testament to years of dedication. Joint custody with Marcus, my ex-husband, allowed me to cherish my spirited 8-year-old Emma, alternating weeks in a routine I believed was stable. I'd painstakingly rebuilt my world after our divorce 2 years prior, finding solace in healing others and pride in my hard-won independence. I dismissed Marcus's predictable control and Isabella's growing distance as mere aftershocks of a broken marriage, choosing to believe in the best of those I'd once loved. How utterly naive I was, oblivious to the gathering storm that was about to shatter my carefully constructed peace. Isabella, my twin sister, was always the wild card, a tempest to my calm. While I pursued the precision of medicine, she chased the ephemeral drama of the stage. Where I sought stability, she courted chaos. We were mirror images externally, yet worlds apart within, a dichotomy that fueled constant comparison, and, I now realize, Isabella's festering resentment. After my divorce, she'd played the supportive sister flawlessly, offering to babysit Emma, lending an ear to my frustrations about Marcus's escalating custody demands. "You're such a good mom, Vic," she'd cooed, her words laced with an unnerving sincerity. "Emma is truly lucky to have you." I should have seen the performance for what it was, a meticulously rehearsed role, each seemingly supportive gesture a data point collected for a darker agenda. Marcus, my ex-husband, epitomized the ambitious charm that once captivated me in college, a corporate lawyer whose carefully cultivated success and political aspirations demanded a picture-perfect family facade. Our divorce, though devoid of public theatrics, was chillingly sterile. He'd grown weary of my small dreams, while I'd suffocated under his suffocating need to orchestrate every detail of our lives. We'd settled on shared custody for Emma, a delicate balance maintained for 2 years. But recently, his subtle pushes for more time had intensified, veiled in concerns about my unstable work schedule and Emma's need for consistency. I simply attributed it to his ingrained controlling nature, utterly blind to the sinister edifice he was constructing against me, brick by calculated brick. Emma, my radiant daughter, was the sun in my universe, the unwavering bright spot that made every challenging day worthwhile. She possessed Marcus's sharp intellect and my own tenacious spirit, a potent combination that enabled her to charmingly negotiate extra screen time or passionately argue for dessert as a main course. She loved visiting my clinic, her endless, insightful questions about anatomy and healing captivating my patience. "Mommy, if a bone breaks, why does it grow back stronger?" she'd inquire, and I'd patiently explain that resilience is often forged in recovery. Little did I know, I was about to face a lesson in resilience far more profound than I'd ever imagined. Lately, when she returned from Marcus's, a quiet guilt shadowed her eyes, and her hugs felt tighter, more desperate. Children, I've learned, are seismographs of unspoken tension. My physical therapy practice was far more than a mere business. It was the tangible embodiment of my identity, living proof that I could forge something meaningful entirely on my own terms. Nestled in a charmingly renovated Victorian house near Seattle's bustling Pike Place Market, the clinic specialized in complex rehabilitation, helping accident survivors, elite athletes, and determined elderly patients reclaim their mobility. Each successful recovery was a personal triumph, every restored range of motion a small victory against life's cruelest blows. My team of 3 therapists and I had cultivated a reputation for tackling cases others deemed intractable, earning the trust of insurance companies and the referrals of top specialists. My professional license had never been so much as scrutinized, my reputation spotless, a pristine target I would soon discover for the impending onslaught. The first tremor of warning came subtly, 3 weeks prior, from Mrs. Henderson, a long-term patient recovering from a stroke. She mentioned, almost offhandedly, that someone, a woman who looked exactly like you, Victoria, but with an unsettling glint in her eyes, had been asking intrusive questions about my treatment protocols. She asked about your medications, your moods, if you ever seemed unstable, Mrs. Henderson confided, her brow furrowed. I brushed it off as a mistaken identity, or perhaps a competitor's unethical snooping. But then Mr. Rodriguez, a former firefighter with a debilitating back injury, reported a similar encounter, followed by Miss Kim. A chilling pattern began to emerge. Someone was systematically probing my patients, gathering intel, and brazenly impersonating me to do it. That very night, as I tucked Emma into bed after her week at Marcus's, she asked a question that should have detonated every alarm. "Mommy, if someone said really bad things about you that weren't true, would you still love me?" Her innocent query pierced my heart, a premonition of darkness. I held her close, assuring her my love was boundless, immutable, but her words echoed with an unsettling resonance. Children don't conjure such hypotheticals from thin air. They absorb fragments of adult conversations, sensing discord before we acknowledge it. Marcus, a master of subtle manipulation, had always preferred to plant seeds of doubt rather than confront directly. I believed I understood his insidious game. I was tragically mistaken. He had escalated to a new, terrifying plane of psychological warfare, and I was already caught in its merciless crosshairs. The true unraveling began on a Tuesday morning, a day that promised routine but delivered utter chaos. I was intently guiding Jake, a promising 19-year-old college football player, through his ACL recovery exercises when Sarah, my usually unflappable receptionist, burst into the treatment room, her face pale with barely contained panic. "Victoria," she stammered, "there are officials here from the state licensing board. They're demanding to see your patient records immediately, citing multiple complaints." My stomach lurched, a cold dread washing over me, yet I forced a professional composure for Jake's sake. The board doesn't make unannounced visits unless a serious complaint has been lodged, the kind that jeopardizes a professional license and threatens to dismantle a life's work. I excused myself, stepping into the sterile reception area where 2 stern-faced individuals in dark suits introduced themselves. They were professional, yet their eyes held an unyielding scrutiny that made me feel instantly exposed. They informed me, their voices devoid of emotion, that a series of anonymous reports had been filed, questioning my treatment protocols, my ethics, and, most disturbingly, my mental stability. Anonymous, they stressed, a word designed to strip me of any recourse, any direct confrontation with my accusers. Each question they posed felt like a precise surgical incision, carving away at my professional integrity. Have you experienced unusual stress? Any family conflicts impacting your judgment? Are you on any medications that could impair your clinical decision-making? Their investigation was relentless, a meticulous dissection of my professional and personal life. They meticulously scrutinized patient files, cross-referenced treatment notes, and probed into my daily routines. They cited specific fabricated incidents, times I had supposedly exhibited emotional instability or made questionable treatment decisions, none of which I could recall because they had simply never occurred. Someone had invested significant effort, constructing a narrative intricate enough to trigger a full-scale inquiry, yet nebulous enough to elude immediate disproof. As they departed with bulging files and a chilling promise to continue their probe, I felt like an alien in my own clinic. a stranger inhabiting a life that was rapidly spiraling out of my control. That evening, I called Marcus, hoping against hope for a flicker of support, a reassurance that this nightmare wouldn't disrupt Emma's fragile world. His response, however, was a perfectly sculpted masterpiece of feigned concern and thinly veiled threat. "I'm truly sorry to hear about your professional troubles, Victoria," he uttered, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Of course, this unfortunate situation may necessitate certain adjustments to our custody arrangement just until things stabilize for Emma's sake." The chilling emphasis he placed on professional troubles confirmed my darkest suspicion. He already knew. His tone was sympathetic, but beneath it, I detected a predatory satisfaction, the calculated control of a chess player executing a long-planned move. Isabella's reaction, when I desperately called her, was even more profoundly unsettling. Far from offering genuine comfort, she seemed preternaturally prepared, her words echoing Marcus's sinister refrain. "Oh, Vic, I've been so worried about you lately," she lamented, her voice a theatrical sigh. "You've seemed incredibly stressed, almost overwhelmed. Perhaps this is a wake-up call, a sign to slow down, to get some professional help." She then suggested a leave of absence, perhaps even counseling to manage my stress. "I've actually been telling Marcus that you've seemed different lately. More emotional, less focused. We're both genuinely concerned about Emma's well-being." The casual mention of her discussions with Marcus ignited a cold fury within me. They weren't just talking behind my back, they were constructing a damning narrative, and I was merely the unsuspecting victim. The subsequent days dissolved into a torturous blur of self-doubt and paranoia. Every patient interaction, every decision, every word I uttered was second-guessed, scrutinized under an invisible microscope. Patients, swayed by the malicious whispers, began canceling appointments, citing concerns about the ongoing investigations. My malpractice insurance company, alerted by the official inquiry, scheduled an urgent meeting. Emma's school counselor, observing my daughter's quiet anxiety, discreetly inquired if Emma's stress levels about her mother were indicative of deeper issues. Someone was systematically dismantling my life, my reputation, my very sanity, weaponizing my own daughter's innocence against me. The isolation was soul-crushing. I couldn't grasp the phantom enemy, couldn't defend myself against shadows and insidious rumors. It was psychological torture, designed to push me to the brink of my own sanity. The first crack in their impenetrable fortress of lies appeared 2 weeks later, on a rain-swept Thursday evening that would forever alter the course of my life. I was working late at the clinic, meticulously documenting every patient interaction, a desperate attempt to fortify myself against future onslaughts, when my phone vibrated with an incoming call from Isabella. Her voice was strained, breathless, bordering on frantic. "Vic, I'm outside your apartment building," she gasped. "But I can't find my keys anywhere. Can you please come down? I desperately need to talk to someone right now." Her uncharacteristic vulnerability, even feigned, was a calculated lure. Despite the unease, I craved the comfort of family, driving home immediately through the pounding rain. But upon arrival, Isabella was nowhere in sight. Her car was absent from its usual spot, and her phone rang unanswered. Confused, frustrated, and deeply disturbed, I ascended to my apartment, only to find my door ajar, an ominous gap in the threshold. Someone had been inside. My apartment, unsettlingly, hadn't been conventionally burglarized. Nothing of obvious value was missing, no blatant signs of forced entry. Yet, a disquieting sense of displacement permeated the air. Papers on my desk were subtly rearranged, a drawer in my bedside table was slightly ajar, and my computer, which I religiously shut down, was merely in sleep mode. Someone had been searching, meticulously and carefully. As I reached for my phone to dial 911, my eyes fell upon Isabella's phone, lying innocently on my kitchen counter, seemingly dropped and forgotten in her manufactured haste. My hands trembled as I picked it up, a visceral tremor of ethical conflict battling with an overwhelming surge of desperation. I knew I shouldn't invade her privacy, yet the desperate need to understand the nightmare engulfing my life obliterated all hesitation. The screen glowed, unlocked, revealing a voice memo application prominently displayed, with dozens of files. The most recent, chillingly titled Project Emma, Phase 2, beckoned like a siren. My sister had been recording our conversations, not for months, but as a meticulously planned operation. I sank onto a kitchen chair that night, the world outside dissolving into the drumming rain as Isabella's voice memos played, each recording a fresh stab to my heart. She hadn't just been documenting our conversations, she had been meticulously constructing a false narrative, editing my words, splicing together phrases from disparate discussions about work stress or daily frustrations, transforming them into chilling admissions of mental instability. I can't handle the pressure anymore. A voice that was undeniably mine, yet utterly alien in its context, lamented, a Frankenstein's monster of manipulated sound bites. The sheer calculated malice, the breathtaking thoroughness of her deception, left me gasping. My own twin, the other half of my genetic coin, had been assiduously building a case designed to dismantle my life, one carefully crafted lie at a time. But Isabella's phone held far more than just these insidious edited recordings. It laid bare the entire conspiracy in agonizing digital detail. A sprawling archive of text messages between her and Marcus, spanning months, laid out their strategy, their timing, their legal tactics with the cold precision of a military operation. The licensing board complaint worked perfectly. Isabella had texted Marcus just 3 days prior, a cruel victory dance. Victoria's questioning herself now. The school counselor is documenting Emma's concerns about her mother's behavior. We should be ready to file for emergency custody within 2 weeks. Marcus's reply was equally chilling, his lawyer's mind cold and calculating. My private investigator has photos of her looking unstable outside the clinic. Combined with your recordings and the professional complaints, we'll have everything we need. Emma deserves better than this chaos. They weren't just manipulating perceptions, they were fabricating evidence, a meticulous web woven to snatch my daughter away. The sheer audacity and meticulous scope of their plan were staggering. They had hired a private investigator, not just to follow me, but to capture carefully timed photos, strategically snapped during moments of genuine stress or emotional vulnerability, twisted to portray instability. The licensing board complaints, I now realized, were orchestrated using false patient testimonies. Testimonies Isabella had insidiously gathered by impersonating me, befriending my patients, extracting their personal details, and then weaponizing that information to create seemingly credible grievances against my professional conduct. They had even infiltrated Emma's school, with Isabella posing as the concerned aunt, feeding the counselor carefully rehearsed observations about my purported mental state. Every facet of my life, every relationship, had been surveilled, analyzed, and systematically weaponized against me. As I delved deeper into the months of messages, Marcus's true motivation emerged, cold and clinical, extending far beyond mere custody. It was about political ambition. He was preparing a run for city council, and his campaign consultant had unequivocally advised him that presenting himself as a devoted single father would enhance his public image far more than sharing custody with an emotionally unstable ex-wife. Isabella's motivation, however, were far more visceral, more deeply rooted in the twisted landscape of our shared history. A lifetime of simmering envy, of perceived slights, of feeling eclipsed by my stability and success, had finally boiled over. She always got everything, Isabella had venomously texted Marcus. The medical career, the perfect daughter, everyone's respect. It's time she learned what it feels like to lose control, to lose everything. My sister didn't merely want to assist Marcus. She yearned to dismantle me, piece by agonizing piece, fueled by a corrosive, lifelong jealousy. The technical sophistication of their malevolent scheme both impressed and utterly terrified me. They had meticulously researched every aspect, from the exact procedures for filing licensing board complaints to the precise legal language required to trigger investigations and the specific documentation needed for emergency custody hearings. Marcus, leveraging his formidable legal expertise, ensured that every step, while morally reprehensible, remained technically within bounds. They had meticulously crafted a timeline spanning 6 months, complete with specific milestones, contingencies, and backup plans. If the licensing board doesn't suspend her practice, one chilling message read, "We'll escalate to the state medical board. If the school doesn't document sufficient concerns, we'll arrange for Emma to mention specific, fabricated incidents." They had considered every variable, every potential obstacle, except for the one crucial oversight: Isabella accidentally leaving her phone behind. For the first time in weeks, the suffocating fog of helpless confusion began to lift, replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated rage, a clean, white-hot fury that energized every cell in my body. They had woefully underestimated me, mistaking my commitment to healing over litigation, my preference for stability over drama, for weakness. They had forgotten that physical therapy is not just about understanding how bodies break, but, more importantly, about the methodical, often painful, process of putting them back together, forging them stronger than before. I had dedicated my life to helping people recover from devastating injuries, teaching them that true healing demands both unwavering patience and fierce determination. Now, it was time to apply those very lessons to my own shattered life. They wanted to play dirty. I'd spent 2 years married to, and learning from, the best and most ruthless lawyer I knew, Marcus himself. That night, as the first rays of dawn crept through my kitchen window, I began meticulously planning my counterattack. My strategy was forged with the same methodical precision I dedicated to crafting treatment plans for my most complex patients. First, Isabella's phone needed to be secured legally, not as stolen evidence, but as property accidentally left by an invited guest. Second, I had to document every detail without alerting them to my discovery, maintaining the charade of my deteriorating mental state. Third, and most painfully, I needed to gather my own irrefutable evidence of their conspiracy, which meant becoming the very thing I despised: manipulative, calculating, willing to deceive those I had once loved. The thought sickened me. But Emma's future, her innocence, was the sacred stake. Sometimes, true healing demands the painful excision of infected tissue, no matter how deeply entwined. My family, or what remained of it, had become the infection, and I was about to become the surgeon. The following 2 weeks became the most grueling performance of my life, a high-stakes charade played out on an invisible stage. I had to embody the image of a woman teetering on the precipice of a breakdown, all while clandestinely amassing an ironclad arsenal of evidence against the architects of my despair. Every interaction with Isabella and Marcus transformed into a calculated chess move, meticulously designed to bait them into revealing more incriminating details, all while maintaining my facade of increasing fragility. Isabella's incriminating recordings had revealed their insidious expectation: that I would crack under pressure. So, I meticulously delivered precisely what they craved to witness: a woman overwhelmed by circumstances she couldn't comprehend. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. I was wielding their own insidious psychological warfare tactics against them. Isabella, emboldened by my apparent deterioration, grew increasingly audacious. Her visits became more frequent, her inquiries into my mental state more probing, more intrusive. "You seem so utterly overwhelmed lately, Vic," she'd purr, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "Perhaps you truly should consider taking a break from work. A little respite might do wonders." All the while, her phone, a tiny recording device, discreetly captured our conversations, twisting my carefully crafted responses. I began feeding her precisely calibrated lines, designed to sound deeply concerning when heard in isolation, yet utterly innocuous and rational within their full, unfiltered context. "Sometimes I feel like I'm battling invisible enemies," I'd murmur, referring to the very real, unseen conspiracy against me, knowing she would edit it to portray me as paranoid, delusional. Every conversation became a perilous tightrope walk, each word a double-edged sword, gathering vital evidence while precariously maintaining my elaborate, self-sacrificing cover. The pivotal breakthrough in my counteroffensive arrived when I ingeniously turned their own insidious surveillance methods against them. Utilizing the digital breadcrumbs hidden deep within Isabella's phone settings, I uncovered their clandestine meeting schedule, regular, after-hours rendezvous at Marcus's sleek corporate law office, where they meticulously plotted their next moves. I began shadowing them, employing discreet techniques gleaned from countless detective novels and thrillers, an unlikely student of espionage. 3 nights a week, under the cloak of darkness, they converged, reviewing their fabricated evidence, strategizing their next steps, and toasting their perceived progress in dismantling my life. Their overconfidence, their absolute certainty in my imminent collapse, was my unexpected leverage. They never once suspected that the woman they were systematically breaking down was, in fact, meticulously fighting back. Underneath my forced despair, a stealthy voice recorder app on my own phone began silently documenting their every incriminating word, every chilling detail of their conspiracy, with the same relentless thoroughness they had once used against me. The sheer volume of evidence I meticulously amassed over those 2 harrowing weeks was devastatingly conclusive. Not only did it expose their brazen conspiracy to fabricate evidence against me, but it also laid bare the intricate web of Marcus's own hidden life, a tapestry of deceit that would utterly obliterate his claim to custody. During one particularly damning recorded conversation, I unearthed his carefully concealed, ruinous gambling addiction, the monumental debts he'd secretly accumulated, and, most explosively, his illicit romantic involvement with a woman recently arrested for drug possession. The impeccably crafted, perfect father image he had so assiduously cultivated for the courts was, in reality, a meticulously constructed mirage. Isabella, meanwhile, was revealed to harbor a long-concealed history of profound mental health issues, including a recent, undisclosed hospitalization triggered by crippling financial woes and a corrosive, lifelong jealousy of my perceived successes. The most profoundly damaging piece of evidence, the very linchpin of my counterstrike, was secured during an audacious, covert operation. I managed to secretly record one of their most crucial planning sessions by leaving my phone, a silent, unblinking witness, hidden deep within Marcus's private office bathroom. I'd orchestrated a manufactured emergency visit, feigning an urgent need to discuss Emma's school schedule, all to gain access. For 47 excruciating minutes, their insidious voices filled the recording, meticulously detailing how to precisely time their custody filing for maximum public impact, how to systematically coach Emma to report fabricated concerns about my behavior, and how to ensure the sham licensing board investigation would conveniently conclude just before their court date. And the sheer beauty of this plan, Marcus's voice, chillingly clear, reverberated from the speaker, is that we're not technically lying about anything. We're simply presenting facts in the most favorable light. Isabella's response was even more damning, a venomous whisper. She'll never suspect her own sister would do this. That's the ultimate advantage of being identical twins. Everyone trusts me because they think I'm her. By the agonizing conclusion of those 2 weeks, my hands held enough damning evidence not only to vigorously defend myself, but to utterly dismantle their credibility and expose their vile machinations to the world. Text messages, raw voice recordings, irrefutable documentation of their insidious lies, glaring financial discrepancies, and concrete proof of a coordinated harassment campaign spanning months. It was all meticulously catalogued. But the most emotionally potent, the most devastating piece of evidence was something they had unwittingly delivered into my hands. Emma herself. My innocent 8-year-old had, in her quiet, bewildered way, begun asking questions about why Daddy and Aunt Isabella kept asking her to remember bad things about Mommy. My daughter, the unwitting pawn in their cruel game, had, through her pure, childlike honesty, exposed the profound depth of their psychological abuse. They had crossed an unforgivable line, one that no amount of sophisticated legal maneuvering could erase. They had involved a child in their malevolent conspiracy, and that, I knew with a chilling certainty, would be their absolute undoing. The final, decisive piece of my counter-strategy involved brilliantly turning their own meticulous timeline against them. They, in their arrogant overconfidence, had meticulously planned to file for emergency custody in precisely 3 days, coinciding, they believed, with the anticipated peak of my manufactured breakdown. Instead, I preemptively scheduled my own, unannounced legal consultation with Sarah Morrison, one of Seattle's most formidable family law attorneys, a legal shark renowned for her unwavering resolve and uncanny ability to win the most seemingly impossible cases. I also meticulously prepared formal complaints against Marcus with the State Bar Association, detailing his egregious professional misconduct, and diligently compiled comprehensive documentation regarding the fraudulent licensing board reports. But most importantly, and most tenderly, I prepared Emma. In age-appropriate, carefully chosen words, I explained that sometimes adults make very bad choices, and that she, my precious daughter, was never, ever responsible for fixing them. The hunter was now undeniably the hunted, and this time I held all the weapons. The custody hearing, so meticulously orchestrated by Marcus and Isabella to utterly destroy me, ironically became the very stage for their spectacular downfall. They had petitioned for an emergency session, boldly asserting I posed an immediate threat to Emma's well-being, their faces radiating a smug confidence born of months of meticulous preparation and fabricated evidence. They anticipated Marcus gaining full, uncontested custody. I walked into that hushed courtroom precisely as my attorney, Sarah Morrison, a legal shark disguised as a woman in elegant pearls, had instructed. Appearing worn, visibly stressed, seemingly overwhelmed by a crisis far beyond my control. Let them believe they've already won, Sarah had advised with a steely glint in her eyes, until we show Justice Wong precisely the kind of people who would inflict such cruelty upon a child's mother. Marcus, radiating an aura of polished authority, delivered his opening statement, a masterpiece of insidious manipulation. He painted me as an unstable healthcare provider, whose professional woes were merely symptomatic of deeper, intrinsic psychological instabilities. He presented Isabella's meticulously edited recordings, the private investigator's strategically timed, damning photographs, and the school counselor's carefully documented concerns from Emma about my purported behavior. His delivery was smooth, empathetic, and utterly convincing, had one not possessed the chilling, full truth. Your Honor, he concluded, his voice resonating with feigned paternal devotion. Ms. Chen is clearly struggling with profound mental health issues that profoundly impact both her professional competence and her ability to provide a stable, nurturing environment for our daughter. For Emma's safety and well-being, I must respectfully request full custody, with supervised visitation only for Ms. Chen. Isabella, positioned strategically in the gallery, flawlessly played the role of the distraught, concerned aunt, occasionally dabbing at dry eyes with a delicate lace handkerchief. Justice Catherine Wong, a no-nonsense woman in her early 60s whose reputation for incisive legal judgment preceded her, listened intently, her expression unreadable, before turning her piercing gaze to my attorney. Ms. Morrison, she stated, her voice devoid of inflection. Does your client wish to respond to these serious allegations? Sarah rose with the quiet, devastating confidence of a master strategist holding a royal flush in a poker game where her opponents were merely bluffing. "Your Honor," she began, her voice resonating with authority, "not only will we respond to these grave allegations, but we will unequivocally demonstrate that this entire proceeding is nothing less than the calculated culmination of a malicious conspiracy involving systemic fraud, relentless harassment, and, most unforgivably, the emotional manipulation of a minor child. We possess irrefutable evidence that will not only profoundly shock this court, but will also reveal the true, abhorrent character of the petitioner and his co-conspirator." A palpable ripple of unease swept through the courtroom, and for the first time, Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Our meticulously prepared presentation commenced with Isabella's very own phone, which we had painstakingly subjected to forensic analysis to ensure its absolute legal admissibility. The courtroom was then plunged into a chilling side-by-side auditory comparison. Isabella's original, unedited recordings of my private conversations played alongside her grotesquely manipulated, damning versions. With each stark contrast, Justice Wong's expression grew progressively sterner, her jaw tightening. The true hammer blow came when we played the devastating 47-minute recording captured in Marcus's office bathroom, a raw, unfiltered exposé of him and Isabella meticulously discussing their evidence manufacturing timeline. The courtroom descended into an almost sacred silence, broken only by the chilling echo of Marcus's voice. "They're not technically lying," he had calmly stated, "just presenting facts in the most favorable light." Justice Wong stopped the recording, then, with an almost imperceptible shake of her head, demanded to hear that specific section again. And then, once more. The most gut-wrenching, emotionally devastating moment arrived when we presented the irrefutable evidence of their insidious campaign to coerce and coach Emma into reporting negative, fabricated observations about me. The recording of Isabella, her voice sickly sweet, coaching my bewildered daughter to remember times when mommy seemed sad or angry, was played for the entire court. It was followed by Emma's own brave, handwritten statement, dictated to me the night before the hearing, a poignant 8-year-old's testimony describing how Daddy and Aunt Isabella kept asking me to think of bad things about Mommy for months. "I didn't want to make Mommy sad," Emma's careful script stated, "but they kept asking until I said something." The judge, visibly moved, immediately requested a private, in-chambers interview with Emma, conducted by a court-appointed child psychologist, which unequivocally confirmed the systematic, psychological manipulation designed to alienate my daughter from me. Marcus's meticulously constructed facade, the very foundation of his carefully curated image, crumbled completely under the weight of the damning evidence. We presented irrefutable proof of his crippling gambling debts, his clandestine, ethically compromising relationship with a woman boasting a criminal record, and, perhaps most damagingly, a trove of financial documents revealing he had systematically hidden substantial assets during our divorce proceedings. His burgeoning political ambitions, once so promising, died an ignominious death in that courtroom, his true venal character now irrevocably etched into the public record. Isabella's credibility, already fractured, evaporated entirely as we meticulously exposed her long history of mental health struggles, her profound financial dependence on Marcus's legal fees for her conspiratorial services, and her own chilling, recorded admissions of envy-fueled revenge. The meticulously crafted perfect family art image they had so arrogantly attempted to project was unmasked as an elaborate, cruel fiction, designed solely to destroy an innocent woman and steal her child. Justice Wong's ruling was delivered with a gravitas that resonated throughout the silent courtroom. It was swift, devastating, and comprehensively just. Not only did she dismiss Marcus's malicious petition entirely, but she immediately modified our existing custody arrangement, awarding me primary physical custody of Emma, with Marcus's visitation now strictly limited to supervised encounters, pending a complete court-ordered psychological evaluation. Furthermore, She emphatically referred the entire case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges related to fraud, perjury, and the reprehensible emotional manipulation of a minor. Marcus and Isabella were jointly ordered to pay all of my substantial legal fees, and the State Bar Association was explicitly directed to launch a full investigation into Marcus's profound professional misconduct. This court, Justice Wong declared, her voice ringing with indignant authority, has rarely, if ever, witnessed such a calculated, malicious, and profoundly harmful conspiracy against a parent and child. The petitioner's actions unequivocally demonstrate precisely the kind of instability, ethical bankruptcy, and egregious poor judgment that renders him utterly unsuitable for unsupervised custody. 6 months later, my life had not merely returned to its former equilibrium, but it had blossomed, improved far beyond even my wildest, most hopeful dreams. The lingering shadow of the licensing board investigation was formally closed, accompanied by a rare, official apology, once the fraudulent complaints were meticulously exposed. My physical therapy practice, bolstered by the inspiring narrative of my legal triumph, flourished, attracting new patients throughout Seattle's medical community who deeply admired my resilience and unwavering commitment to integrity. Marcus, his legal license revoked, his political career stillborn, found his professional and financial life utterly decimated by his gambling debts and the public shame of his actions. Isabella, unable to face the crushing social consequences of her betrayal, vanished, reportedly moving across the country, a ghost of her former self. Most importantly, Emma and I, hand in hand, navigated the delicate process of healing, strengthening our bond with the compassionate guidance of family therapy. She learned, with the innocent wisdom of a child, that she was never responsible for the cruel machinations of adults, and that true, unconditional love never, ever demands that a child choose sides. The crucible of that experience taught me a profound truth. Healing extends far beyond mending physical injuries. Sometimes, it demands the courageous act of excising the very people who relentlessly wound you, tearing them from your life with surgical precision, no matter how deeply entwined they once seemed. And from that painful void, you then possess the strength, the clarity, to build something entirely new, something stronger, more authentic, and more resilient than anything you've ever known. Emma and I, together, forged new traditions, etched new, joyous memories, and constructed a family founded on the bedrock of honesty, trust, and unwavering love, rather than deceit and manipulation. She learned, through my fiercely fought battle, that her mother possessed an indomitable strength, willing to fight for what truly mattered. And I learned with an agonizing clarity that sometimes the very people who bear your likeness, your own flesh and blood, can embody the most dangerous, insidious enemies imaginable. We both learned, together, that while justice may often move at a glacial pace, its arrival, when finally empowered by the unyielding force of truth, is an experience worth waiting for, a triumph that reverberates through the deepest chambers of the soul.